I invite you all to come up to the stage. Minister of Minerals, Tanzania, His Excellency Anthony P. Mavunde. Deputy Coordinating Minister for Investment and Mining, Coordinating Ministry for Maritime Affairs and Investment of the Republic of Indonesia, Mr. Septian Haryo Seto. General Manager of the Zimbabwe Mining Development Corporation, Mr. Engineer Blessed Chitambira. President Director, Indonesia Battery Corporation, Mr. Toto Nugroho. Let's give a warm applause once again for panel discussion 2. Mr. Moderator, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for that. So we may begin. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. My name is Rishon Chimboza, and I'm the Managing Director for Africa at the Tony Blair Institute for Global Change. I'd like to welcome you to our panel entitled Optimizing the Mining Industry and How Both Africa and Indonesia Can Seize Opportunities Presented by Critical Resource Minerals. Before I introduce my esteemed panelists, I just want to provide some context to the discussion. Africa's mineral endowment is both diverse and abundant. As global demand for minerals rise, particularly those that are essential for renewable energy technologies, Africa's mining sectors are posed to play a crucial role in the global supply chain. The continent holds significant share of known global mineral reserves, including 92% of platinum, 56% of cobalt, 70% of manganese, and between 20 to 30% of global graphite reserves. In 2019, Africa produced almost 1 billion tons of minerals worth over $400 billion US. More importantly, as the world grapples with environmental challenges of climate change, the transition to a net zero economy stands out as the only feasible solution. Consequently, critical minerals have been rapidly positioned at the center stage of world competition and geopolitics, particularly amid the technological revolution and industrial green transformation that align with the goal of achieving a net zero future. For as long as I have worked with mining companies and engaged with the sector, the need for value addition and beneficiation on the continent has not abated. As the Tony Blair Institute has discovered across its work on critical mineral value chains, in pursuing this goal, international partnerships to share the benefits of sustainable technology innovation and financing will prove to be a pivotal game changer. The upcoming session that I'm about to start will delve into the landscape of Africa's mining industry, exploring both its immense potential and challenges that hinder its growth and sustainability. Harnessing resources effectively can be complicated due to a myriad of challenges. These challenges create an unpredictable environment that hampers investors' ability to engage in long-term planning and strategic investment, stifling the industry's potential for stable and robust growth. By fostering dialogue among stakeholders, including government, industry leaders, and civil society, this session aims to identify actionable strategies to enhance and maximize Africa's mining potential and opportunities. By doing so, the continent can unlock its mining potential in a manner that maximizes socio-economic benefits while safeguarding its natural environment for future generations. But before I begin the panel discussion, I want to introduce my panel. They all have fantastic biographies, but I'm not going to delve into each and every one of them. So to my left is His Excellency, Mr. Anthony Mavunde, who's the Minister of Minerals in Tanzania. Then sitting next to him is Mr. Septio Haryo Seto, who is the Deputy Coordinating Minister for Investment and Mining in Indonesia. Then to his left is Mr. Blessed Chitambira, who is the General Manager of the Zimbabwe Mining Development Corporation, which is the state-owned mining entity in Zimbabwe. And then to my extreme left is Mr. Toto Nugroho, President Director of the Indonesia Battery Corporation. I'll stay true to my African roots and start off with our hosts, Mr. Seto. How have Indonesia and Africa been collaborating effectively to harness the vast mineral reserves for the development of renewable energy technologies? Also, what types of investment are needed from Indonesia to support Africa's mining sector in accelerating the development of the renewable energy industry? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I think this is very important questions. Yeah, as you already mentioned that Indonesia and Africa hold significant resources of the critical mineral that is important for the energy transition. Yeah, and I think based on that we have to have a same understanding that these vast mineral resources has to be developed for prosperity of our people. In that case, I think. In the case of Indonesia, we already started to develop our value-added industry, which I think on the mineral resources right now, we ban the export of the raw materials so that this commodity has to be processed in the country first before we can export to international market. Give you an example, in 2014, we export about 2.9 billion US dollar of nickel product, yeah, which is I think about 45% is nickel ore, yeah, which is the raw material. So since we do the ban of the export, yeah, for this raw material back in 2014 and 2020, right now our export of this nickel product has been increasing to about 34 billion US dollar. Yeah. So if you see the number is more than 10 times increase, yeah, in less than 10 years. Yeah. With this industry, we are able to develop our eastern part of Indonesia, which is I think previously is less developed compared to the western part. A lot of FDI coming into the region, and then I think it creates employment, it reduces poverty, so it creates prosperity for the people. Yeah. So I think this experience is something that we can share together with our African colleagues. Yeah. How we develop this value-added industry, what kind of environment and ecosystem that we need to set up, yeah, to attract those investment. Because at the end, if we just basically dig and export, yeah, without processing these minerals, creating significant value added for the country, then forever we will be always a mining country. Yeah. We cannot go into developed country becoming the industrial country. I think this is very important. You talk about the investment. I think yes, there are several companies coming out from Indonesia which already invest in Africa. In Zimbabwe, for example, this Indonesian company developed a huge industrial project over there. I think this is one of the key examples. But I guess one important things that we can share is the lesson learned that we have from Indonesia for the last maybe 40, 50 years. We rely on the export of the raw material, but we did a significant transformation for the last 10 years to push for value-added industry in our country, and I think it's been very successful so far. Yeah. So I guess this experience and lesson learned is something that we can share together with our African colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Seto. And I just want to pick up on a point that you had raised around value addition and beneficiation, and also the journey that Indonesia has walked towards that. And I'm thinking of the Tanzania example, right? We're living in very, very different times. We can't ignore the geopolitical realities, especially around critical mineral resources. And we also can't ignore the reality around moving towards low carbon intensity economies. And to do that requires very strong decision-making and very strong leadership. So Your Excellency, can you just talk to me about how Tanzania is prepared to maximize its critical mineral resources to meet the demands of a low carbon economy? Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Moderator, for having afforded me this opportunity. Now, because time is a luxury we can't afford, we have a comprehensive plan, but I'll just highlight on a few areas which have more focus. Tanzania is one of the few countries in Africa which is endowed with abundant mineral resources. We have the range of minerals from metallic minerals to critical minerals to industrial minerals, as well as building minerals. Now, tapping the endowment that we have come up with a strategy of implementing a critical minerals value addition. One thing which is of utmost importance is the creation or advancing mineral development by ensuring that we have more knowledge on what we have underneath. This is exploration. Now, as we speak right now, we have only covered 16% of our country by high-resolution geophysical survey. So our aim is to cover 50% come the year 2030. And right now, we have seen the upsurge of our budget. The budget has increased threefold, and most of the money has been allocated to geological survey institution, where we are going to enhance exploration to make sure that we ascertain what we have underneath. So one of the biggest achievements that we are going to achieve soon is the purchase of an equipment that is an helicopter, which will fix with the geophysical survey equipment to scan the whole country. That is number one. But the second strategy is that we are building capacity of our people. We want our people to be skilled and to actually match with the growing demand of the critical minerals in the world, because you can't have a workforce which does not have specialized skills and critical minerals, and then you triumphant that you can achieve better results. So this is the area where we also put more focus. And the third area is we have the legal frameworks that prohibits the export of raw minerals, and we want the downstreaming of minerals to be conducted within Tanzania. And we have promulgated that in our laws, that no minerals will be exported unless it is processed within Tanzania. And we have one big project which is a model, and we have asked the other investors to emulate that model. We have the project of Kabanga Nickel in Tanzania, where the BHP company is involved. Now the BHP company is going to construct a multi-metal refinery facility in Tanzania, where all the concentrates will be processed in Tanzania. So we have asked other investors as well to emulate that model. Besides, we have also enacted the law that, as I've said, prohibits the export of raw minerals, but we have also made bold statements, especially the one which I made during my budget session, that will never issue a special mining license to any investor unless he produces a comprehensive plan on how he'll add value within the country. So this is the second approach that we have taken. And the third approach that we have taken is ensuring the compliance of ESG on the issue of environmental protection, as well as social impact and the governance as a whole package. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Your Excellency. And I like the direction which this conversation is going, because it's a dose of pragmatism in terms of what is required to create incentives to invest sustainably within your mining sectors. This is both for Indonesia and Tanzania. But at the same time, the imperative for what I would call an enlightened national interest, which actually puts the country's interests front and center, but at the same time also prizes collaboration. You spoke about your country's diverse and vast mineral endowment, but I'm sure my colleague here from Zimbabwe would also attest that on a per capita basis, they also have a very vast mineral endowment. So I just want to take a step back from the conversation of value addition and beneficiation and just talk about the basics, right? The actual mineral resource. Mr. Chitambira, I would like to know, what are the key critical mineral resources that present significant opportunities for exploration and development in Zimbabwe? Thank you.
Thank you, moderator, for allowing me the opportunity to contribute. Zimbabwe hosts a lot of minerals. We have got more than 60 minerals, and out of the 60, 40 are only being mined in terms of production. That exactly opens up opportunities for exploration. There are a number of clusters in terms of mineral resources within the country. And the critical minerals we are talking about lithium, copper, nickel, gold, platinum, coal, among other minerals. Coming to, in terms of lithium, I think the whole country has got mineral resources of lithium that need to be turned into reserves through exploration. The country, in terms of lithium, it's actually a new venture which basically started in 2022. But already we have more than 7 big companies that are now involved in lithium mining, processing, and production. The country is poised to produce more than 1.5 million tons of lithium per annum. And in terms of the global position, we're likely to be the 5th largest producer of lithium in the world. And in Africa, we could be the first. Still, there are so many opportunities to do exploration in the country. And these exploration are likely to result in increased production. And I think by the year 2026, we could be reaching more than 2 million tons of lithium per annum. Coming to other minerals, we also have platinum. Our platinum is mainly centralized in what we call the Great Dyke mineralization, which is about 550 kilometers, spanning from the south to the north and the central region of the country. And this hosts a lot of minerals, including platinum. And currently we have got more than 4 companies that are actually mining for platinum. And there's potential for more if exploration is optimized for these critical minerals. We also have nickel and copper, which is in 3 clusters. The first cluster is in the Midlands, and still it has got potential for more exploration. And we've got other 3 clusters that are in the northern part of the country that also require further exploration. And with the demand of these critical minerals, particularly for the green energy technology, opportunities are so many for exploration to increase production of these minerals. These are just a few of the critical minerals that we have in the country. But like as I said, we have got more than 60 minerals in the country, and it's worth to take a note that the exploration is key in getting to production. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Chitambire. And we can see the ingredients for a mining sector that is prosperous and that serves the needs of the country. And we're hearing them coming together from the enabling investment environment. Of course, having the natural resources, of course, is a prerequisite. And so is the need for having knowledge partners that you can collaborate effectively with. And hopefully you can get to the end result of extracting maximum benefit from those resources. And there's no better example than what IBC has done in Indonesia. So I'm going to move to you, Mr. Nugroho. And your journey as Indonesia has been a long one, with lots of school fees paid for you to get to the stage where you can kickstart your battery manufacturing capabilities. 2 questions for you. Firstly, what are the major infrastructure and investment challenges faced in the critical mineral sector, particularly in relation to mining and battery production? And then how can IBC address these challenges to ensure a stable and efficient supply chain? I would also like to know how IBC can align its strategies to meet the rising demand for critical minerals. Thank you.
Thank you for having us. So maybe I think to answer the question, I would like to share how IBC was formed and the main vision. So first, it comes with the government policy of the downstreaming. As Pa Seto mentioned, we started doing the export ban of nickel resources. After that, there were investment in the NPI production and also the HPAL production to a huge amount. And what we are doing actually for the Indonesian Battery Corporation is to make sure the downstreaming process of our nickel resources is bringing the best value to the Indonesian government, but also where our place is in the global supply chain of battery materials. That is very important. So the strategy that we use is that we attract the investors. We have them to invest in Indonesia, all the way from the mining, smelting, precursors productions, cathode anodes, battery cells, and also recycling. So that's why we call it the end-to-end development of the battery cells here in Indonesia. So currently, we have two very good partners in terms of production in Indonesia. The most important thing is that what you can see, the investment, which is already in Indonesia, on the battery cells. LG has invested one of the biggest investment for battery cells production in Indonesia, 10 gigawatt hour. That equates to about 100,000 of EV cars per year. Also, our Chinese partner also have invested from upstream to downstream. So from the mining all the way to the cells and all the way to the recycling. And this investment is not small. It takes about $6 billion US to have this kind of investment to go all the way from upstream to downstream. So this is one of the infrastructure that we need. Battery, maybe you could see it's small, but it is a very complex process. It needs a lot of investment. It needs a lot of technology and know-how going all the way from the mining and to the battery cells. So that's number one in terms of how do we actually make the investment work. What is important for us is that when we see the partners, we need to impose things to them saying that, yes, you can have our nickel resources, but you need to downstream Indonesia, let's say to a minimum of about, let's say 40%, we call it conversion to either battery materials or battery cells. So that's what we did the negotiation with our partners so that we get the downstreaming effect in Indonesia, but the partner also gets the value chain that is coming from Indonesia, will it be battery materials, precursors, or anode. This is something that they need. So that's for the first question. The other one is also is very important. How do we sustain in terms of sustainability of renewable energy? So when we were creating the lithium batteries that we produce from our mines, it's not just for the EV. One is for the energy storage solution. This is very important for countries such as Africa and Indonesia, where we had a lot of potential for solar panel or also from wind, where of course there's intermittency. And with the battery energy solution, this is one thing that can deliver the constant power for the development of electricity. One thing that I also note is that how do we actually cooperate between Africa and Indonesia? One of the great things about Africa and Indonesia, we really complement each other. We do have the nickel, but we do not have the graphite or the lithium. Africa do not have much nickel production yet, but you do have graphite, lithium, which we can collaborate in the future to make sure we have a stable supply chain. Hopefully that answered the question.
It does indeed. And I just want to go a bit deeper in terms of that question around actually building a domestic battery manufacturing industry. And there's lessons here to be learned in both directions, both for African nations and also for Indonesia in terms of how this could be done, because the journey is far from complete, right, on both sides of the equation. And also what's becoming apparent is that this move to low carbon intensity economies is actually an opportunity if we take advantage of it in a timely manner. So, Mr. Seto, I just want to build on Mr. Nugroho's points on creating those domestic capabilities. How do you envisage Indonesia expanding the EV battery industry in Africa's market in a mutually beneficial way? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think building ecosystem of battery, electric vehicle battery and its electric vehicle, it's not an easy one. Yeah, I can say this one because I think our experience after we fully understand the whole ecosystem, it involves a lot of process, it involves a lot of critical minerals. In one set of battery, for example, you do need lithium, you do need nickel, you do need cobalt, you do need manganese, you do need copper, you do need aluminum, and that's not only about the raw material, but it has gone through. It has to be processed using a different technology. So I think you need to start somewhere. In our experience in Indonesia, we start with nickel. So we develop the ecosystem for nickel processing that can be used as a material for the lithium battery. So in Indonesia right now we have a lot of facilities to produce nickel product for the lithium battery. And since about 2 years ago, actually, we are started to attract more investment that is important for the ecosystem of the lithium battery, but this is not on a nickel base. Yeah. So we are able to attract a lithium refinery, even though that the raw material we need to get from South America, from Australia. Yeah. We are able to attract copper foil. We are able to attract anode material, So I think this is very important ecosystem for this lithium battery. So you need to start somewhere and you leverage this successful story to attract more investment on this ecosystem. I think this is very important. Number two is definitely you need to attract investment on the electric vehicle manufacturing. Yeah, without this electric vehicle manufacturing facility in the country, it's going to be very difficult for you to attract investment, for example, on the battery cell and the battery pack manufacturing. So different supply chain, different stage of the supply chain require different investment driver. Some of this on the upstream and midstream will depend on the availability of the raw materials. But some of the process, like a battery cell, a battery pack, it's really depend whether you have a domestic EV manufacturing or not. So that's why I think in Indonesia, our policy, after we successfully develop the downstream, the upstream, the midstream, the raw material, the mining, then we start into this further downstream, into this industrial process of making electric vehicle and making battery cell. And for you to do that, then it's a whole different set of strategy and a whole different set of the investment incentive. It's nothing to do with the availability of the raw materials. I can say this one because we have done this one. So you need to trigger and improve the demand for the electric vehicle in your country, which means that you need to create an incentive for people to buy this electric vehicle. So I think I will stop there.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Seto. And it gives us a dose of reality, right, of what it actually takes to create that industry. And I spend a lot of time speaking with political leaders in my role right across the continent. And the majority of them speak of the desire, right, to move further downstream. But what's real and what needs to be acknowledged is that each and every country has its role to play within the supply chain. And that realization is incredibly important because it's what also directs the energy and the focus of the leadership towards figuring out what part of the value chain that additional investment should be in. And we've spoken a lot about the geological, the geophysical, technical requirements, access to markets, but a really, really important part of this recipe is looking at the role of private capital in actually developing the industry. So I'm going to come to you, Mr. Chitambira. Zimbabwe has a long history of value addition and beneficiation, which has required private sector engagement. How do you collaborate with the government as a state-owned entity as well as the private sector to enhance investment opportunities?
Thank you, moderator. Yes, indeed, Zimbabwe is endowed with minerals, and we have walked the journey of value addition. And coming to critical minerals, like what one of the panel speakers said, we need to take some steps, and we have begun taking those steps, starting with processing, particularly on lithium, where we have said no export of raw chrome or raw ore of lithium. It has to be processed to spodumene concentrate first. But there shall come a time where we need to process and value add the spodumene concentrate into lithium salts, so that we can follow the value chain of lithium to electric vehicles or in batteries. And as a result of that, Zimbabwe is looking also for investment to come into play through private-public partnerships, which we encourage as a state-owned entity and also as government, where we need to value add our mineral from spodumene concentrates to lithium salts, either lithium sulfate, lithium monohydrate, or lithium carbonate, which eventually will go to the value chain of producing the batteries and also the green technology. So in terms of collaboration, we basically, as government, form what we call private-public partnership, where the investors come and they contribute in terms of foreign direct investment, and we also contribute our resource. And at the end of the day, after a full feasibility study, we then sit down with investors and engage for a win-win cooperation in terms of development of these critical minerals. Like I said, Zimbabwe is open for business. We encourage these investors, and after through due diligence, we can then form these partnerships that are beneficial to everyone. So we are actually inviting investors to also come into play in terms of development of these critical minerals, and at the end of the day, we can then do value beneficiation, which is beneficial to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. And from one state-owned entity to another, and I'll move to you, Mr. Nugroho. How does IBC intend to leverage downstreaming opportunities in combination with Africa's mining resources to drive sustainable economic growth and technological advancement for both Africa and Indonesia?
Yes, thank you. So as I mentioned before, one of the things which is very good for Indonesia and Africa, we are complementary in terms of the battery EV ecosystem. As you can see, the main drivers for battery is nickel, cobalt, manganese, lithium, and graphite. For sure, in Indonesia, we do have the nickel. We have a little bit of cobalt and mangan. But it's very important for us to work together to have the other solution regarding the graphite anodes, and also to some extent phosphate from Morocco. That's one thing that, of course, we can collaborate, because here, Indonesia do not have all the resources. Again, we need to work with the lithium producers also. So that's one thing which is complementary. The other one is the geopolitical issue. As you know, there are three main demand centers in the world: the US, China, and also Europe. Now, if in terms of Indonesia and Africa, I think we can collaborate together to really be supplier to all of these three major partners. if we stay geopolitically independent, that's always been Indonesia's stance, is that we really want to be the supplier to the entire value chain in the world. So being Indonesia and Africa, we can see that whatever we can produce collaboratively, this can really be one of the things which is wonderful for us, is not just from the mineral side, but geopolitically we can support these three main demand centers with productions that we have in Indonesia and Africa. The main problem that we have is each of the countries that have these resources wants to downstream in their own country. But if we do this, this will be detrimental for all of us, because we are not going to be supplying the value chain of the global materials for battery cell, but we are competing. But if we can find a way to really collaborate on this issue, then we can find a solution. I think there needs to be a high-level G2G discussion first on aligning this agenda, and also, but after that, it's a B2B discussion between countries, between, SOE or private. And what is one of the most important thing is that we still need partners. Because in terms of technology, financing, and also from the capability of resources to do this, we really do need to talk to the OEM or the major battery producer players.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Nugroho. And I want to pick up on some of your points as I come to you, Your Excellency, in terms of we've heard the steps that need to be taken for you to move further downstream. We've discussed the various ingredients that are that are required with regards to this. We've also spoken about increased collaboration between Indonesia and Africa. And often with these forums, which are incredibly powerful for sharing experiences, their efficacy often lies in the follow-up, right? And I do see this being the genesis of a conversation which has very, very strong follow-up actions. So what I would want to know from you, Your Excellency, what are the practical steps that are actually required to move these discussions of collaboration between Indonesia and Africa into something real and something tangible? And I know this is a very bold ask, given that you're speaking on behalf of the continent, so your colleagues on the audience will be listening very intently. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Moderator, for having given me this opportunity again. First of all, I must admit that I'm very much flabbergasted with the speed growth of the mining sector in Indonesia. It's really amazing. When you're reading from the numbers in years back and to date, it goes without saying that this sector prospers a lot in this region. So it's a place where we can borrow a leaf, and it's a place where we can come and benchmark on how Indonesia has successfully improved and managed to actually conduct the downstream processes within the country, and it has been very successful, and the country is now reaping the benefits out of mining sector. Now, speaking on behalf of African continent, as you have so asked me to do, first of all, we must agree that Africa is a home to more than 30% of the world's known critical minerals. But Africa is not a home to industries that add value to these minerals. Now, there are serious steps which have to be taken for us to reap benefit out of this sector. Because in agriculture, we can just simply say that Africa is a breadbasket, but we shouldn't be breadbasket again. Africa must now optimize the resources that we have and make sure that our countries benefit out of that. Now, going to that path, there are stages and critical actions which we have to take. One, which I've learned from Indonesia, is the steadfast leadership. You have a very steadfast leadership which actually superintended what the mining sector gives, and actually you have reaped the benefits because of the leadership that you have, and you have made the statements and you have worked by your statements, and this has helped the country to actually advance in a very speedy way. The second thing is that we must have a proper legal framework. In Indonesia, it took them about years to fully ban the export of raw minerals. It's not an easy task. It requires a lot of dedication, a lot of commitment, and I've managed that. Now, this is the takeaway for we African countries to learn from Indonesia, that if you put a proper legal framework, it can lead you to this way. As I indicated earlier, that in Tanzania, to be particular, we have been following this path. We have enacted a law which actually requires that no raw minerals should be exported outside the country without having been processed. So this is a step which should be emulated by most of the African countries for us to succeed. The second thing is that we must have skilled workforce. We cannot actually achieve what we want if we don't have a skilled workforce. We know that transition to low carbon energy requires specialized skills, but I think now this is high time that we improve our curriculum, we improve our model of training, and build a very strong academic institutions to agar with how the world needs right now. So this is also very important. And the third thing is the conducive environment to captivate investment into our African countries. This is very key. Now, we have this very honest and honest partner from Indonesia, as the Deputy Minister has intimated that they have abundant resources in some commodities, especially nickel and others which has mentioned. But still, Africa has a room to captivate investment, collaborating with Indonesia, especially on those areas where we have more resources. For example, we all know that graphite is in dire need right now in the world. And the requirement of graphite annually, the global demand, is 6.5 million metric tons. But the production of graphite annually is 1.2 metric tons. China has the largest share of production globally, 64%. The second country is Madagascar, and the third one is Mozambique. They're all found in Africa. So I think this is the high time now we capitalize on what we have and to ensure that they benefit our continent. And the last thing I think which we also need to learn from Indonesia is improvement of infrastructure and power stability. That's very key in developing mining sector. And as I've said, that we have to borrow a leaf from Indonesia, from how they came from to where they are now, because it's a very good story, it's a nice story to hear, and I think we African countries can easily emulate and strengthen collaboration with Indonesia on areas of interest. I thank you so very much for having given me this opportunity.
Thank you. And just to conclude our panel, just some thoughts that I've gathered from the conversation that we've just had. First and foremost, we've got two leaders of organizations and institutions from across the African continent, and here I'm referring specifically to you, Your Excellency, and my colleague there from ZMDC. And the conversation is moving from one of a client relationship to one of partnership. When I also look at my two colleagues from Indonesia, there are lessons to be learned, but there's also an appreciation that Africa has something to bring to the table. And the ideal outcome from a conversation like this is one where we realize that we are in unprecedented times. The green energy revolution, the geopolitics of the world, and also from an African perspective, Africa's increasing confidence to speak on a global stage and also to realize maximum value from its resources. But there's no better platform to have this conversation than between two partners who have a very, very similar history, even though we are separated by very vast geographies. For most countries, a very similar mineral endowment, and also just the simple complexity and diversity of our countries. So there's many things that unite us and that allow us to relook at our positioning as both Africa and Indonesia within this current moment that we're living in to make the most of our mineral resources. And there have been many conversations across the various commodity super cycles around value addition and beneficiation. And there tends to be a repetitive nature to these discussions. But I do feel now it's a very, very different time. And to quote Shakira, I think now is the time for Africa. And I also think for Indonesia as well, now is the right time to be engaging with Africa. There's a very, very strong appetite to be engaging with countries that do look at the continent as an economic opportunity and also as a partner that brings something robust to the table. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's give our round of applause once again for our panel discussion number 2. Thank you. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we're now moving into the third panel discussion of the day, economic transformation with a focus on the sub-theme Unlocking Capital Flows, Strengthening Industrialization, Empowering SMEs in Africa and Indonesia for Sustainable Growth. To guide this critical discussion, our moderator for this session is the Head of Digital Financial Development, Indonesia's Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mr. Pandu Syahrir. And may we invite together to come up to the stage the speakers, Minister of Women Affairs, Community, Small and Medium Enterprises Development Zimbabwe, Her Excellency Monica Mutsvangwa, Minister of Knowledge Economy Startups and Micro Enterprises,